Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the 4th Annual BECU Member Summit. It's our pleasure to be here tonight in Linwood for the first time. And I'm Stephen Black. I'm BECU's Vice President of Brand Strategy, and I've been in my role for almost 13 years. So tonight we are joined by our executive team here to answer questions of our members. And before we get started with your questions, I'm going to ask each of them to introduce themselves and just say a little bit about their role. So, Scott, why don't we start with you?
Yeah, thanks, Stephen. Scott Strand, and I am the Chief Operating Officer, and with that comes responsibility for leading our lending businesses, wealth management, our branches, and our contact center. I've been with BECU for almost 11 years now, and I think I am the only Snohomish County resident among this panel tonight, so we're excited to have the summit up in Linwood this year.
Great. Hi, I'm Melanie Walsh, and I'm the Chief Administrative Officer for BECU, and my responsibilities include the HR functions as well as our administrative and deposit operations functions. Been with BECU for 30 years.
Good afternoon, I'm John Stewart. I'm the Chief Risk Officer. I oversee the enterprise risk function, legal, governance, and compliance. I've been at BECU coming up on 4 years now.
Great, thanks, John. I heard it helps if you butter up the moderator and the questions. So I was going to say, Stephen is the architect of all the great brand work that we've done. So remember that when you're handing out questions, please.
Absolutely, Benson.
Noted.
And Benson Porter, I'm President and CEO, and obviously work with the whole cast of characters up here.
I'm Tom Morgan. I'm the Chief Information Officer for BECU. I head up all technology, and I've been here 4 years.
Hi, I am Melba Bartels. I'm the Chief Financial Officer, and I think this month is my 2-year anniversary with BECU.
Hi, I'm Doug Marshall. I've been with BECU. I'm now in my 7th year, and I'm responsible for our digital, our product, our data strategy, and our experience design teams.
Hi, I'm Tom Bergquist. I'm responsible for marketing, co-op affairs, strategy, and our affinity relationships, and I've been with BECU for about 24 years.
Exactly.
Tom wins. Great,
No,
thank you.
Melanie.
Oh, Melanie, sorry, right. So welcome all. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being here. You know, the Member Summit is a unique opportunity to get to celebrate our members, hear from them, and this really unique opportunity to have this forum and to be able to ask questions of our executives. So just a few things to make you aware of. We are taping this session. And we do have questions from members who submitted them in advance. So if you don't immediately have questions, we will turn to some of those, and maybe that will spark some thinking on your part. And when you do have a question, please raise your hand, and I will come to you with the microphone, or somebody else will do so from the back. So, whoops, who has that first burning question they'd like to ask? Anyone? All right. I'll give you a second to think about it. I'm going to turn first to Scott then, and Scott, seems like every day in the newspaper there's information about the housing market in our area, changes that are happening. What do you see BECU doing to help our members in that regard?
Well, good question. And it's been kind of a crazy ride in the housing market for the last several years, right? Really rapid increase in home prices across the Puget Sound area. And then about a year ago or so, it suddenly kind of slowed down a little bit, and then prices started to come down, and then rates dropped again, right? And it's spring kind of buying season, and so the market's really been up and down. And maybe it's softening or cooling just a little bit, but the real issue is that prices are still high, right? So it really affects affordability for our members that want to purchase a home. And so we really try to focus on helping them with that, helping them in a home purchase and buying process as well as the financing of it, and kind of come at that a bunch of different ways, you know, whether it's education, first-time homebuyer seminars. I think there's actually right across the hall a seminar going on right now, a breakout. We provide access to real estate listings on becu.org as a resource for our members. We have a program called Home Rewards, which a member can be referred to a trusted real estate agent partner who can help them find a home, but also rebates part of their sales commission to our member. And that program last year, I think members got back over $1 million in that program last year. So there's some things around resources, you know, that we really try to provide for our members to help with that process. More specifically, though, on the financing part of it, we do have a pretty broad array of products. no origination fee, which helps keep that cost down of getting into the mortgage. And then last year, we introduced a first-time homebuyer grant program, which has been successful. And under that program, members can get up to $6,500 towards the down payment of a home purchase. And so that's really helped, but there's more. There's more we can do. And we are excited that last year we helped, I think it was 2,400 members or so purchase a home. But we also recommitted another $1 million to that grant this year in 2019 as a way to continue to help with that. So this is going to be a kind of a continued area of focus for us, because while the housing market will kind of go up and down, affordability is still an issue, and we want to help enable our members to be able to purchase homes.
Thank you, Scott. That first-time homebuyer program is really fantastic, and I think a great demonstration of our difference as a cooperative and how we can help our members. So, yes, sir.
Just to follow up on the Home Rewards program, so right now that's done through agents that are qualified through BECU. So if you didn't hear me, despite the projection, the Home Rewards program with that commission rebate and assistance is done through agents that are partnered and registered with BECU. To that end, I have two related questions. Is there any attempt on BECU's end, maybe this is a product question as well, to help members search for an agent who is already in the program so that we can work with people that we already know or perhaps have vetted ourselves instead of having to go with the first one you tell us to go to? And related to that, is there any way for members or even agents to approach BECU and say, hey, we have longstanding relationships with these agents or people that we know and are working with, and we'd love for them to get into that program so that we can partner with BECU and our agents more directly?
Thank you for that question, and I do think that Scott would be the right person to sort of start talking about that.
Yeah, on the first question, around can you work with, I think was around, can you work with an agent you already know, rather than just being assigned to, I think the short answer is, no, in that we haven't structured the program that way because of the way we really manage that network very carefully in terms of the number of agents that are on it. They're vetted and monitored, and we try to match it, sort of geographically. So that's our current process, and so it doesn't lend itself well to, that kind of a way of matching relationship. But that said, the second piece of it too, this is a common question, is that what about other agents that can be invited into that program? This relationship is with one, general company, and so while this has been a good program, it can improve, and we're looking to try to figure out how to maybe expand that. Because it's kind of centered, frankly, in the Puget Sound area too, and we're beginning to expand a little bit more. We do home loans in other counties and other states for that matter. And so I would regard that as kind of a little bit of a limitation of the current program and an opportunity and things we'd want to address when we continue to try to expand that program, potentially with other partners in the future.
Thank you. Yes, right here. He'll bring a microphone right to you so we can hear your question.
Hi, my name is Beth Wood, and I'm interested in what the priorities are from the CIO perspective in terms of future enhancements that we can see to your fabulous dashboard for bill pay and for account management. For example, I'm kind of curious to see whether you have any plans for integration with other services like Quicken or whatever for the reporting function. So I just kind of like to get an update on priorities there.
Well,
how they're going to be released.
Sure, and I think both Tom Morgan and Doug Marshall could speak to that, so we'll turn to Tom first.
Great. Well, thank you for that question. Great question. We have a lot of investments that we're doing right now of how do we improve the member experience. We've been investing a lot with putting out Zelle at the beginning of the year to help improve person-to-person payment and money transfer. We're doing additional updates to the mobile banking platform right now, providing new features and functionality that I'll probably ask Doug to go over more of the details. I know that we added last year the travel alert function so that you can put travel alerts online. That's going to be coming to mobile banking very soon to enable that. Putting in a pause so you can pause your debit cards. There's been a number of functions there. Some of the bigger projects that we have going on right now is to put in a new mortgage banking platform. That will be coming later this year, to make it easier for you to apply for a mortgage online and make it simpler to do business. But I think as we look at more of the payment products and mobile banking, I'll turn it over to Doug to talk about that.
Thanks, Tom. Yeah, just quickly to build on that, we, in the mobile space specifically, the goal this year, and actually I see the gentleman who leads this in the back of the room, so he'll hear this, is to essentially provide in the mobile app the same capability that we have in online banking. So if you work on a desktop, by the end of the year, you can do almost all of that. A couple things aren't relevant in the mobile app over the course of the year. The second thing, and Tom alluded to this, is there's a whole batch of things we're going to offer mid-May around the debit card. Most of you probably use your debit card daily, and so the ability to go to a place, change your PIN, manage your card, turn it on and off, that'll roll out in about mid-May. And then a third sort of notable thing, for those of you who are business banking members, we are going to be starting down the journey, and this will not happen this year, it'll happen next year, to offer what we call commercial online banking products. So if you have a business banking set of accounts, you'll have your own space to go do all that. And that's where things like that Quicken integration will likely occur. There's a whole other long list I'd love to go on and on about, but I won't. So if you'd like, we can catch up after the meeting. I can give you more detail. Yeah.
Thanks, Doug. And thanks for calling our dashboard fabulous. That's great.
Yeah, we noted that.
Absolutely. Any questions we can go to right now? Yes, sir.
Hello, Andrew Villeneuve. I have a question about NFC. I'm wondering how feasible it is to open an NFC in Monroe. I have a board member who's there, and they're not very close to either the Lake Stevens or the Woodinville location, and it seems like Monroe is a bit of an unserved market. We do have ATMs there, but how about an NFC?
An NFC in Monroe.
I'll take a stab at that. So kind of just maybe a bit on the process of how we determine, locations, because we're on an ongoing basis looking at locations. This year, we'll have a new one in Covington, and then probably a second one at this point. And so, we really try to look at where our members are underserved and or where there's growth opportunities. So we look at all the local micro markets, we call them, around the Puget Sound area. And have a list of probably at least more than 10, right? 10 or 15 kind of these micro locations that we look at. So we identify those markets, and then within that, the best locations. Sometimes in a great market that we want to be in, that we think we need to be in for our members, we can't find the right specific spot. So that's kind of a dynamic and ongoing process. Specifically about Monroe. I think that's on our list at some point, right? I don't know how far it ranks or how high it ranks, but generally, kind of north end, I think, is some of the areas where we think that we're, probably have some room to grow just a little bit. So I could follow up probably more afterwards and talk about it, but really kind of want to address more of kind of how we come at it as opposed to that specific location.
Great. I'm going to ask a question here that we have from a member, and then we'll return back to you all. A member, Bill T, wants to know, as a consumer financial cooperative, how do we interact with other parts of the cooperative movement? Tom, I know that's something, Tom Bergquist, I know that's something that's near and dear to your heart. I think it would be great to hear from you, as well as have Benson add to that. So.
Sure. So as a cooperative, we are big supporters of the cooperative model in general. And we belong to organizations like the National Cooperation or Cooperative Business Association. We engage with other co-ops here locally, whether it's PCC, REI, folks like that, the Old Group Health. We actually have an individual that part of her job description is to nurture those relationships with other co-ops to figure out how to learn from them in terms of what they're doing, whether it's around governance or whether it's around their engagement with members. In fact, some of the ideas that where this member summit came from, we talked to the folks at the Old Group Health. They had a pretty robust governance and annual meeting program, and we kind of borrowed some things in terms of their ideas. So there is a fair amount of sharing. I think, like I said, we're big supporters of the cooperative model in general, whether it's here locally or nationally across the country.
Benson, would you like to add anything?
Sure. Tom, as usual, is pretty modest. His team also oversees our giving budget, and so there's a piece of that budget is dedicated to supporting these relationships. And I think in the broader session, I think that number is about $6 million this past year, and that was kind of both for financial health and relationships with some of these other cooperatives. So that's probably an important part of financial. Then we also have relationships with a number of community development financial institution credit unions where we provide low-cost deposits, loans, et cetera, to help them be viable. So there's several ways we approach that. We're also pretty active in the credit union industry, both nationally through trade organizations, then the networks in the credit union that allow for lending through the auto dealers and or the shared branching system. The shared network system is something that we're pretty active in, and if predates me. CEO before me was served on the board. I've continued to carry that on, but that's another way we participate with the other credit unions. Mm-hmm.
Thank you, guys. So what else can we answer for you tonight? This is a great chance for you to get a great question in, something that you've been thinking about. Yes, sir. David.
I thought board
I
members
have
were
a,
excluded.
someone asked me this question last week, and I didn't know the answer, and it had to do with the logo. And it had to do with, the question is why is the box around BECU rounded by the U? What was the purpose of that?
That's for Stephen
That's
to
for-
answer.
That's a Stephen.
Do you have an hour, David?
Gosh, I possibly have no answer for that. No, thank you. And yes, David Johnson is a former board president and served BECU for many years, so thank you for your service. You may have noticed, I hope by now, that we did do a rebrand of BECU 2 years ago. And that was a real deliberate choice in order to make BECU more representative of our entire membership. Not that we aren't, incredibly proud of our legacy as serving Boeing employees, but because we're now open to serve all residents of Washington State and beyond, our field really has expanded to do that. And so as we created this new identity, it serves a lot of different purposes, but this rounded corner, very deliberate design choice, is meant to provide a subtle emphasis on you, and you being our members, you being the employees who work and serve our members every day. So thank you. I'm sure that sparked a lot of other interesting thoughts, but not for me, for these folks here. Any other questions? Yes, Miss.
Hi, my name is Ruth. I'm actually wondering what, or if there is a plan for kind of more teller support service at like local NFCs. There's not a whole lot right now, and then the larger banking centers are kind of few and far between. So I'm kind of interested in what, or if there is a plan kind of for that going forward.
Well, we do get that question a lot, in terms of our teller services being provided at large locations. And so part of our, delivery model has incorporated that, but I'm going to turn to Scott and then Benson, I think, to really talk about that, because I know a lot of other credit unions and banks come out to study our model. So,
Yeah, I'll start with that. I think that our model is something that we've been committed to for quite a long time, obviously, and we've got 2 of the locations that have tellers, and the rest of our neighborhood financial centers do not. And so currently, to specifically answer your question, we don't have plans to expand the teller services at local NFCs. So we're pretty committed to our model in that sense. And there's advantages to it in terms of keeping costs low and things like that. But I would say that we're also committed in investing in alternative ways that members can transact with us or seek products and services through digital, through online, and we continue to enhance that capability as well. We do participate, of course, in the shared branching and the co-op ATM network. And so at this point, we don't have plans to expand that, but we'll continue to invest in those alternative ways to handle transactions.
And Benson, what have you come across in terms of working, with other banking executives and stuff who are really interested in what BECU's done?
Well, it was a hotly debated topic at BECU every time we open a new office. And as a new CEO, everyone that had feelings about this thought it was an opportunity to re-argue all those. So we have spent some time looking at it. And as we expanded into the Spokane market the past couple of years, we took it as an opportunity to, do we need to have cash in the branches in order to be able to serve our members? Can we maintain the same model that we have here there. And so we've tested the cashless model without tellers there to relatively good success. And so I think we're thinking the world is moving more towards our model because of cash becoming less prevalent. And this is by far our biggest branch now in terms of number of transactions. And so it's trying to balance all those things. I think a couple of these topics have kind of touched on how we see people wanting to bank. And so what this group generally here has to do is balance all these different interests. And so at the same time, we're investing a lot into our digital capability because that's where members are wanting 24/7 access and be able to do more and more either online or through their mobile device. At the same time, we're still opening offices, so we have not stopped opening offices. So we still see an important role for a lot of our advisory services, whether it's mortgage, investment, where people like more of a person-to-person type of interaction. So we're carefully doing both, thinking over time it'll probably migrate more and more towards digital, depending on consumers' preferences. But we still open the physical because we still see an important role there. But all the physical that we open, so our members know, we generally do on short-term leases with the expectation of if it's not the right location or if we're making the wrong strategic choice, we have flexibility to adjust over time.
Thank you. I'm going to turn the topic a little bit to the areas of diversity and inclusion, something that we talk about a lot at BECU more and more. And in the spirit of that, I think it's a great time to hear from some of the women on our executive panel here as well. So Melanie, I know in your world, working with diversity and inclusion in our programs is quite important. And how are you looking into that as far as representation of diversity across the BECU workforce?
Yeah, great question. So obviously, BECU appreciates and values diversity and what it brings to the organization from the standpoint of creating an environment for our employees and for our members to thrive is an important part of who we are and how we give back to the community. The other part of this is that when we think about diversity and inclusion, really making sure that we think about it also in terms of representation. We also think about it in terms of inclusion from the standpoint of really leveraging the differences of our employees. Leveraging the differences not only from a representation standpoint, but also from a perspective and thoughts and experiences. And how do those things come together that we're really fully leveraging so that we can provide better value and service to our members and to each other and to our communities. So that's a little bit about how we think about it. And then as far as representation and some of the numbers, when we think about our employees and we look at the demographics of our employees, we're really proud that our employee base looks very similar to the communities in which we serve. We also, year over year, have improved our diversity in female population as well as racial ethnic minority populations in leadership roles. And so that has year over year increased. We still have some opportunities in the very senior level positions as it relates to both female representation as well as our racial ethnic minority representation. So we have a number of things that we do around internal development. So succession is a really important part of this work. And giving employees the opportunity to advance through the organization. You've heard that I've been with the organization for a number of years and I've had the opportunity to advance, and we want a number of other employees, both all employees, to be able to really give their best selves to the organization. And so we have a number of programs around how to do that, as well as how to tap into other parts of the community to bring in diverse thoughts and perspectives into the organization. And I'm really proud that over 40% of the folks who are coming into the organization are from referrals. So again, BECU employees really wanting other friends and family members to join. And there's a number of other things that we're doing, but this work is continual. It's important, and we want to be thoughtful about it, and it requires constant care and attention. And we're really excited about doing this work, but it's never ending, and because it's important. So thanks for the question.
Yeah, thank you, Melanie.
Yeah.
And I know for the marketing and cooperative affairs team, it's been so exciting to see young people who started out in our organization be promoted up to and join us and bring their amazing range of views and their experiences in working with members. And so I certainly thank my colleague Travis Simpson for producing such a great training program to do that. So what questions now are on your mind? Yes, sir.
Hello, my name is Farid, and I'm glad you brought up that question. And I was about to ask a question regarding diversity and inclusion in BCU. Thank you for that. But my question is in particular toward our young people that you mentioned. You know, we know that BCU's commitment to our community is not hidden. We see it everywhere. But my question was, what are some particular programs that BCU is doing to help young people? Things like, you know, becoming, helping credit cards becoming more accessible in terms of, you know, what are we doing in regarding financial educations and those sorts of stuff.
Great question about what BECU is doing to really nurture young people with our financial education programs. And boy, we could talk for a long time about that, but there are some exciting things to share, and I think both Doug Marshall and Tom Bergquist could take the lead on that.
So financial health or financial literacy is core to who BECU is. I mean, our purpose is about improving the financial well-being of our members and community. So we definitely look at that across the entire life cycle of someone's life. And so starting out, obviously, with the types of accounts we have in Doug's world, the early saver account that really tries to promote saving, our saving jars that we have that really talk about this concept of spend, save, and share. And then the coursework, the classes. I think our biggest commitment is something we do every year on our annual day of service. We essentially, every single employee goes out to selected high schools and teaches reality fairs. This year we taught 8,000 students, junior and senior high school students, about ready to go out on their own perhaps, really how to manage life, their finances. Essentially they're given a persona, and then they have to figure out how to get transportation, shelter, cell phone, insurance, all that. And what's amazing to see these kids is that, number one, they get really excited because it actually becomes a little bit of a competition because they have this amount of salary and they have to figure out how to get to the day. But they start out saying, well, I'm going to get the BMW and I'm going to get the 3-bedroom view apartment. And all of a sudden they realize they don't have any money for food. So it's a very interactive, hands-on experience for them to realize what life is like. And we typically hear these students say, I didn't realize how hard being an adult was. So, and we actually think that type of learning experience is much more powerful than one of us getting up in front of a class and telling them about it. So we still offer those programs. We also partner with a wide variety of nonprofits that do this similar type of work. Whether it's junior achievement, they have a very similar program that they run across the entire state, which BSU is the lead supporter of that effort. We also do it down in Portland. So it's something that, as Stephen said, there are just numerous programs that we have designed to move folks, regardless of age, to try to improve their financial well-being and readiness, no matter where they're in their life stage. But there's a lot more than that.
And I might just add quickly, products, of course, are in support of those programs. And Tom mentioned the Early Saver product, which all of you probably know, pays 6%. So this is a little unrealistic for kids, but they actually get 6% to encourage that early behavior. That's a very simple example. We're actively working on 2 or 3 things that, of course, would be digital, as you'd expect, for younger. And maybe kind of noteworthy, less a product idea, we actually, as we do experience design, we actually have a human-centered design team. And some of the work they do, they're now doing with kids, 10, 12, 14-year-olds, because obviously before long they'll be of age and need those products. So we're also trying to bring our design principles into that younger group so that as we build those products, they're going to be relevant for them today, but also in the future. But a couple of exciting things are going to come later this year, I think, for the younger clientele membership.
Thank you. And something that's really important for our being able to achieve that is maintaining a level of sustainable growth and being very mindful of our expenses and our expense management. And I would love for Melba to share more about that as our Chief Financial Officer, what that really means to you.
Thank you. That was a nice tee up there.
And I'm not a golfer.
And a great question, and one that's near and dear to my heart, sustainable growth as the Chief Financial Officer. I think, starting with maybe why growth is important for us as a credit union, One is it's an indicator that we are providing the value and services that members appreciate and that attracts new members, right? So it's a reflection of our success in doing our job well for you and new members. So when we have growth, that's a good thing. The other thing is ensuring that we have enough growth to continue to invest in a variety of different things to be there to support our members now and in the future. So whether it be investing in cybersecurity capabilities or whether it's investing in our digital offerings to ensure that you're able to access your money and BECU services anywhere and everywhere and all the time, growth really supports a number of different things. So growth is important, right? And then as we think about sustainable growth, well, what does that really mean? That just simply means that we're balancing our growth with our earnings so that we aren't growing faster than our earnings can keep up, and so that we can effectively balance the amount of member value that we're providing with also ensuring that we have a strong capital base to support BECU for continued growth and also to ensure that we have capital to withstand unforeseen events as well. So growth is important, and then sustainable growth makes sure that we're balancing growth with earnings to provide the value and the support and the safety and soundness of the credit union for the future.
Thank you. Any questions I can take from the group?
Stephen, maybe one wrapper
Yes, sir.
on that.
Sorry
And,
about that.
and Scott, you can correct me if my recollection is not as accurate as you think it should be. If you take all the work that we do in the community and you think about the products, I think the end result is what type of members are we attracting? I mean, are we resonating with the young people? Our average age in the credit union of our membership is about 41, which is far lower than credit unions in general. Generally, the age of membership is older. And if you look at our new members coming in, high 20s, 27 is when the numbers come in my mind.
Yeah,
The new members we see joining the credit union contemporary. So we believe we are appealing to a younger demographic and bringing fresh perspectives into the cooperative.
Thank you. I was tempted to ask a lot of questions of you up here, and I know we have a great forum that you'll be headlining here in about
Inch
15
deep,
minutes.
mile
But
wide.
I really would like to return to you. So, yes, you had a question here.
Yes, I hate to ask two questions, but I have questions.
That's all right.
I just wanted to say, from a brand perspective, it seems to me that our brand really signifies quality, and I see that all over the place in everything that's happening of the services that I use. But I did have a question about risk, and you brought up cybersecurity, which I was very happy to see the tips that you had available to us. I appreciate that. But in terms of risk, and particularly cybersecurity risks, and also financial market risks, I just wondered if someone could comment on those kinds of things.
Well, yes, they definitely can. And I would ask John first. I was going to ask you about risk. So.
Yeah, so I would say of our kind of top two priorities, that's one of them, and I'll ask Tom Morgan to add any color to what I'm going to talk through. But yeah, cybersecurity is certainly one of the big areas that it's constantly a priority for us, a lot of investment, and it's really a matter of keeping up with the threat. So we have kind of many layers of controls, and so part of it is about protecting BECU and the data that we're storing within BECU and the payments network in BECU. So a lot of focus there, but part of that focus is also making sure that you're prepared, that you're as defended as you can be. So I would encourage you all, for example, to attend the Herb Weisbaum seminar later tonight, where he'll talk about kind of having, identifying the predatory emails, the phishing attempts, having appropriate malware, password, having sufficiently complex passwords, pieces like that. But we go through a lot of regulatory examination, and we try to stay well ahead of kind of what those expectations are, and that's kind of where we are today. We're ahead of kind of where regulators expect us to be, but we continue to focus on it and prioritize it.
Tom, did you want to add to that?
Yeah, and there was a question that was submitted earlier that we haven't talked about yet about skimming and the potential for stealing your credit card information. We have a lot of members that have had their credit cards compromised either through a retailer that they used or through a skimming process. So with skimming, you want to be very careful with your card when you're putting it into a reader. If it feels like it's jamming or it's too tight, I'd be very concerned about that device, that maybe there has been something inserted there that could be causing that. There's a skimmer inside that could take your information. You know, as you look at how you're using your credit card, be careful. 2 years ago, I think in 2016, we implemented chips in our credit cards to help improve the security. That was one step forward. We've also implemented multi-factor authentication with online banking so that you can get a text alert with online banking usage to make sure that you're the one actually doing the transaction. And there's many other things. We have that also coming to mobile banking later this year as we look at multi-factor authentication. So there's a lot that you can do. Passwords, yeah, I agree. You should attend that session tonight around with Herb, that passwords are critical, that you have a unique and different ID, user ID, as well as password for your online banking. Many people use the same password or same logon ID for every platform, every system that you use, because it's easy. You know, who wants to remember a different ID for every website that you go to? But I urge you that within for online banking, please use a unique user ID and password, because some of the compromises that have happened with LinkedIn or Primera or others, they've stolen user IDs and passwords. Well, then they will try to apply those and attack your online banking accounts. If you're using the same ID, then they could potentially gain access to your account. So it's really critical that you use unique IDs and passwords for your online banking activity.
Thanks. And you began that question really talking about the strength of this organization and our image and our brand, and going back to Benson, who planted the seed in the beginning, and talking about, you know, our brand strategy and the work that we did to evolve that. So critical that we really stayed focused on our purpose and maintaining a reputation. And I had the privilege of working with you on that. So I'd love to just hear one more time about how that values work really resonates in how we did the rebrand, but how we really operate today.
Great, and if we could take one step back, I'd like to respond to this question just a little bit.
Sure.
Partly the answer would be follow the money. If you had access to looking at our budget, we've continually increased the amount we're investing in our IT and digital area. Partly that's for information security. And since I'm sitting between risk and riskier.
Great.
Was that
yeah,
intentional?
I always feel good about that.
Yeah, to remind myself it's a dark world in my office. I grew up in Aberdeen, and my dad owned an office supply business there, so I have kind of this affection for globes. And so I saw this globe once that was all dark. And so it reminds me that it's a dark world out there. So every time I have a one-on-one with my colleagues here, Risk and Riskier, I point to the globe and say, yes, I know it's dark.
Yeah, if you want to talk about the dark world, talk to me after.
In terms of the values work, to go back to your question, when I joined the BECU 7 years ago, it was clear there was a very strong culture around doing the right thing for our members, but we didn't have any words that we consistently used to describe it. And being the new guy, I didn't want to come in and apply mine what I thought I was hearing, because that didn't feel very authentic and may miss the mark. And so at the time, we had an innovation tool that allowed all employees to participate in a survey, which kind of got to a pairwise challenge. Do you prefer this versus that? 70 questions, all of our employees, about 80% of our employees went through to identify key themes that resonated with them as individuals that we felt was pretty authentic of what we stood for as an organization, because it come from within. And it came up with kind of 5 themes that really kind of drove what we think is the culture. And as we've grown, we all have concern that we'll lose the good stuff, the secret sauce of BECU as we grow. And so we've been very conscious about being clear about what are those key attributes that have made us who we are, both our purpose and our values. And so we have open conversations about that. And then it goes into succession planning when we hire new employees, all those types of things. So it's still informing the organization. So we are very conscious about that.
All right, we have time for one more question before we break, and then, yes, sir.
My name's Eric. Scott mentioned the rising housing market. Was wondering why HELOCs are limited to $250,000, and if there's any prospects of that ever being raised anytime soon.
Yeah, so that's an easy one.
Is that planted?
Yeah. Actually, April 1st, we changed that back from 250 to a maximum of 500,000. Conscious of the loan to value, right? So it's at a lower loan to value requirement. But that was one, we kind of a competitive gap, and so we decided to change that back. That was effective April 1st, along with a rate decrease on HELOCs to help add more value to that product for our members.
Scott, would you like to introduce your neighbor? Just so we
Yeah.
All right, well, thank you all very much. I know that there are questions that may be on your mind, and some people aren't necessarily comfortable raising them in this group setting. And so those of us who are here, and certainly if you find time with one of our executives or others, make sure that you do find a way to get those questions answered. And you do have an evaluation form here. It would be great if you could fill this out. As we said, this is our fourth annual summit and our fourth time doing this session, and I think we all learn a lot every time that we go. So on behalf of BECU, I would like to thank all of our executives for their participation and words of wisdom, and thank all of you for attending this session, and enjoy the rest of your evening. Oh,
Thank you.
one final comment.
Thank you for your shredding program. It's a great service to the community.
Which program?
Shredding.
Shredding. I thought he said sweating. I was like, I think it's happening. Our shredding program, yes.
Thank you, Stephen.